So we are recording right now. 1 second. There we go. Oops, my battery's low. Just let me put battery charging. Good. Okay. So we are required in 8.3. We are required to for the recording. We are doing chapter 8, page number 92 of NM, question number 8.3. And we are required to make a bad debts account, a provision for doubtful debts account, and a bad debts recovery account. We haven't discussed recoveries of bad debts. So इस क्वेश्चन में हम bad debts recovery भी डिस्कस कर लेंगे और होपफुली आपके MCQ वर्कशीट के अंदर जो भी bad debts recovery related issues हैं वो hopefully solve हो जाएंगे. Okay, so we have to make these three accounts. So I will make these three accounts over here. Part A is we are going to make a bad debts account. Bad debts account here. So we have the bad debts. And we will have a provision for doubtful debts account. So provision for doubtful debts account. And we will have a bad debts recovery account. Bad debts recovery. So before we start the question, let's just analyze these things. Bad debt is an expense account by nature. So obviously on the debit side, expense account increases in the balance, and on the credit side, expense account decreases. Bad debts recovered account by nature is an income account. Basically, we recover the amounts which have been previously written off as bad debts. जो अगर हमने last couple of years में कोई bad debts write off किए हैं तो there is a possibility that the person will regain the financial state and will be able to pay you your debts back. That is what we call bad debt recovery. और अगर वो कोई fraudulent debtors थे and they eventually are captured by the law enforcement, so आपके debts recover होने की possibility होती है. So this is where previously written off bad debts you are going to recover. And that is an income account. So on the credit side, we know that income increases, and on the debit side, the income decreases. A provision for doubtful debts is a provision by nature, and we know a provision is always carries a credit nature. So on the credit side, the provision increases, and on the debit side, the provision decreases. So before we start this question, if you agree with the description of these accounts and you agree with the arrows, then please give me a green check. I posted all of your scores, test scores last night, so hopefully आपको scores मिल गए होंगे. I'll give you the papers. अब जब हम स्कूल में on campus class होगी तो I'll bring your papers. ईमान बदर समझ आ गए बेटे? Okay, good. Now we are going to go through the question. We'll read through it, and we will discuss the problem, and we are going to fill in these accounts on the double entry basis. जैसे information आती जाएगी. We are required section again gives you a hint that we are required to prepare the accounts for the year ended 31st of December 20x2. So 31st of December 20x2 is our end of the financial year. That means your financial year begins on 1st of January 20x2. So 1st of January 20x2 पे अगर आपके पास कोई balances available होंगे, we will title that those balances. Amal, you can't hear me? Does anyone else have the same problem, or is it just Amal's issue? Amal can't hear me properly. Marine, you can hear me properly, and you can see the screen. All of you can hear me properly and see the screen as well. Give me a green check, feedback. Jaldi se. Okay, Amal, others can hear me, and Marine and Amal are having some issues. So I suggest that you log out and restart your internet modem and join back again. लास्ट शो होने से पहले हमेशा आप अपना इंटरनेट एक बार मॉडर्न रीस्टार्ट किया करो ताकि IPs रिफ्रेश हो जाए, so you'll have a good connection. I always do that. So please see restart your modem and join back. Minal cannot hear me either. Okay, Alina. Acha, so that means it's a problem at my end. Acha, voice is very low. Okay. Is that any better? I brought the mic closer now. Is it any better? Uh, Not at all. Acha, okay. Okay, so let me.
So I can hear it. I don't know.
You can. Hadia has no issues here, and I have seen Alina Vakas has no issues. Iman Farooq has no issues. So I don't understand कि मेरे end पे कोई मसला है या कि आपके end पे कोई मसला है. What I can do is I can clip on the mic on my shirt. Hopefully that should solve the problem. Okay, is the audio level better now? Because I have now clipped on the mic onto my shirt now. Can't get any. Okay, Alina says audible with headphones. Okay, so give me a fresh green check now. Is everyone comfortable with the audio level? And I'm sure you can see the screen. Is it better? The audio level is better because right now it's like almost in my face right now. Amal is also fine now. What about Marine Pervez? Marine, you okay? Okay, good. ठीक है, अगर आपको किसी पॉइंट पे आवाज़ फिर से स्टार्ट कर रही हो तो फिर आप मुझे रोक दें उसी वक्त माइक अनम्यूट करके मुझे बता दें. ओके, गुड. So let's start with the question. The accountant of basically अब जब हमने ये शुरू किया था तो मैं आपको ये बता रहा था since our financial year finishes on 31st of December 20x2, so that means it begins 1st of January 20x2. So हमारे पास अगर provision के balances 1st of January पे दिए होंगे तो that will be our balance brought down, and the closing balance obviously we are going to require to calculate. So starting now, the accountant of Mitchell and Michael Limited has prepared the following aged trade receivables schedule at 31st of December 20x2. The policy applied by Mitchell and Michael for the provision for doubtful debts is on a sliding scale basis and is given as follows. Now, ये जो इतनी मुश्किल terms यहाँ पे use हो रही, it simply means one thing, that you are going to analyze your debtors one step deeper. इससे पहले हम जो क्वेश्चंस देख रहे थे, आप क्या करते थे कि आप अपने ट्रेड रिसीवेबल्स जो भी एंड ऑफ द ईयर हुआ करते थे, आप उनके ऊपर एक जनरल रेट, एक ब्लैंकेट रेट 5% और 4% जनरली अप्लाई कर देते थे. यहाँ पे अब आप क्या करेंगे कि अपने ट्रेड रिसीवेबल जो आपके पास एंड ऑफ द ईयर है उनको फर्दर ग्रुप करेंगे बेस्ड ऑन द एज ऑफ द डेट. एज ऑफ डेट का मतलब है कि हाउ ओल्ड the debt is. And logically speaking, the older the debt, more chances are that this debt is going to go bad. So that is why you can see the aging schedule given afterwards. You have a list of trade receivables at the end of the year. The first group of the receivables is $19,600, and these are the trade receivables which are just 30 days old, less than 30 days old actually. So ये वो लोग हैं जिनको आपने goods बेचे in less than 30 days, and that is why the provision for doubtful debts to be created against these people is just 1%, very low. And as you increase the age of the debt, as you go down the schedule, you see that the provision for doubtful debts percentage-wise increases. The highest provision for doubtful debts is 10% against the trade receivable group of 1,320, जो कि over 100 years, over 100 days old है. So we understand the aging schedule over here. जैसे जैसे आपके debt की age increase करती जाएगी, वैसे वैसे chances बढ़ते जाएंगे कि वो possibly future में bad हो सकते हैं. So that is why you can see provision for doubtful debt is on a sliding scale, means it will increase proportionately, as not proportionately, it will increase basis on the basis of the age of the debt. So the new जो जिन debtors की age सबसे कम है उनके अगेंस्ट सबसे कम प्रोविजन फॉर डाउटफुल डेट्स की परसेंटेज है, और जिन डेटर्स की एज ज़्यादा है उनके अगेंस्ट सबसे ज़्यादा provision for doubtful debts apply करती है. So give me a green check if you understand how this aging schedule of your trade receivable has been designed. मेरीन, ओके मेरीन, आपको अभी कोई प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं हो रही ना बेटे, सुनने में आवाज़ आ रही है ना क्लियर? Okay, okay. Now, now we will further move on. On 1st of January 20X2, the provision for doubtful debts was, how much was that? The provision for doubtful debts account had a balance of $500. So let me just put it here. You see, on 1st of January, on 1st of January 20X2, the balance brought down was $500. We agree? We agree on that? That 1st of January balance brought down on the credit side. It's a provision account. Provision has a credit nature, so opening balance will be on the debit side, on the credit side, and the closing balance eventually will be on the credit side. We all agree? Give me a green check on the feedback window. Right? Amal, Madiha? Okay, good. All right. Let me just check my mic level. Settings. My input volume. I think now it must be much better because my input level was low. Is it better? Is it louder now? Because I'm going in red according to the signals that I have. I figured out the issue. Just 1 second. Okay. I hope the audio is loud and clear now, right? Excellent. So continuing with the question, on 17th of July, Harrison Jim, whose debt of $600 had been written off completely in 20X1, he returned and paid his debt in full. This is a recovery of the bad debt. A bad debt recovered, number one, must not be confused with the collection from a debtor. A bad debt recovered must mean that this particular debt was written off in some previous year and then you collected it consequently. So this is an example of a bad debt recovery. मैं पहले इसकी डबल एंट्री एक्सप्लेन कर दूं, फिर हम इसको इस क्वेश्चन में प्लेस करेंगे. जब भी आपके पास एक रिकवरी ऑफ बैड डेट होती है, आप उसकी दो एंट्रीज करते हैं. There are two journal entries. The first journal entry is that you will debit Jim Harrison, जो भी बंदा involved था, Harrison, whatever the name of that person, Harrison, Jim, whatever, and that is $600, I think. It was $600, and you credit the bad debt recovered, $600, right? Then the second entry is you debit cash or bank account, $600, and you credit J. Harrison, Jim, whatever the name was. I'm confusing names. Harrison, Jim, Harrison, whatever the name of the person, $600. So bad debt recovery is done in two stages. So in the first stage, you debit Harrison's account, you create sort of a trade receivable back, and you credit the bad debts recovered account ताकि आपकी income है आपका. एंड सेकेंड एंट्री के अंदर आप कैश एंड बैंक अकाउंट को डेबिट करते हैं और जे हैरिसन को क्रेडिट कर देते हैं. If you see the net entry of these two here is going to be, remember, debit Harrison and credit Harrison will cancel out Harrison's account completely. So your net entry eventually will be just one. You debit the cash or bank account with $600 and you credit Harrison's account with not Harrison's account, you credit the bad debts recovered account with 600. So you can either make two entries in the books like that, or you can make just one entry in the book, which is actually the net resulting value of these two. So these two entries are going to be summed up as debit cash or bank $600 and credit the bad debts recovered. So do we understand this? Remember, right now it's not necessary to have these two separate entries to be recorded for bad debts recovery. One entry will do. This entry will do. You're getting $600 cash, so you debit the cash at bank account, and bad debts recovered will be credited because it's an income of yours. Income is increasing. So for now, this will do. But actually, the only thing that you need to understand right now that this one entry is actually a consequence of two sub-entries. These two sub-entries. So this is your first entry, and this is your second entry here. So why do we have these two sub-entries? Basically, there is another chapter coming up called control accounts. कंट्रोल अकाउंट्स पे जब हम बैड डेट्स रिकवर्ड को जब दोबारा रिविजिट करेंगे तो वहाँ पर हमें इन दो एंट्रीज का वहाँ पे हम कंट्रोल अकाउंट्स में ये रिकवरी ऑफ बैड डेट्स इन दो एंट्रीज के थ्रू रिकॉर्ड करेंगे. बट फॉर नाउ इफ़ यू आर कंफर्टेबल विद दिस पार्ट then give me a green check. Don't worry about this part. We will come to this part again in future chapter, right? If you recover a bad debt, you will debit your cash or bank account and bad debts recovered account will be credited. Why are we debiting cash or bank account? Because we are receiving cash or bank, our asset is increasing. Why do we credit bad debts recovered account? Because our income is increasing $600. So Marine, we understand with it? Everyone else has given me a green check? Good. So coming to this account, we are going to put $600 on the credit side here with the Harrison Gym or whatever is in Harrison, and 28 is date is 17th of July. So 17th July 20x2, that is going to be our entry for bad debts recovered, right? So moving on 2nd of December 20x2, Bay Limited, our trade receivables ceased trading and Mitchell and Michael received a payment of 60 cents in a dollar. We already have seen this expression before in the class. 60 cents in a dollar means that you recovered 60 cents in a dollar. You collected 60 cents in a dollar from the debtor, Bay Limited. However, the remaining 40 cents in a dollar is irrecoverable. So since we are making bad debts accounts, so we will see that what proportion of the debt has gone bad. So in this case, $500 का debt अगर था total, and out of that 60 cents in a dollar was collected. So that means your bad debt should be written off on the debit side as $200. Bay Limited. Do you agree? Bay Limited's entry on the debit side on 2nd of December. Give me a green check.
Sir, I don't understand.
Okay. Okay. Asma and Fajr and Mehreen. Okay. So Bay Limited was one of your debtors. That Bay Limited, the organization, owed you $500 and they have been declared bankrupt. And you could receive 60 cents in a dollar. 0.6 in a dollar means आपने अगर $1 वो आपको owe करते थे तो आपको 60 cents उसमें मिल जाएंगे. तो अगर आपको 60 cents मिल गए तो फिर बाकी 40 cents जो हैं वो आपको नहीं मिले. This is just a fancy way of saying 60% of the amount was collected and the remaining 40% of the amount remained uncollected and that will not be recovered. So $500 अगर आपके पास आपको वो debtors आपको total owe करते थे और उसमें से 60% आपको मिल गया तो आपका actual bad debt कितना हुआ? Remaining 40%. So when you calculate 40% of $500, that comes out to be $200. So that is the actual amount of bad debts. And that is what we are going to write off on the debit side of the bad debts account. Do you agree? Alina and Marine, Adia, Adia. Okay, Marine understands. Good. Okay, now let's continue. Since it says the remainder of the debt was written off, that means 40% of the debt was written off. जब भी आपके पास bad debt के लिए इस तरह की expression दी होगी कि 60 cents in a dollar was received, So you have to see what was not received, because that is your bad debt. So in this case, 40% of the debt was not received, and that becomes your bad debt. All right. Next is John Kelly, a trade receivable of $320, and has recently been declared bankrupt. This amount has been included in the aged trade receivable schedule above, and above as being outstanding over 100 days. This is to be written off in full immediately from the aged trade receivable schedule. So basically, there are two basic informations over here. The first one is that John Kelly, one of our trade receivables, $320 that person owes us, and now we won't be able to receive any of it. So पहली चीज तो हम bad debts को record कर देंगे. We'll come to bad debts account. We will put $320 on the debit side. We will give the reference of Kelly's, and the date is not mentioned. So you can either leave the date column blank, or you can just put 31st of December 20x2. जब भी आपके पास कोई reference date ना दी हो, तो आप हमेशा end of the year के reference लिख सकते हैं वहाँ पे. Or you can even leave it blank if you want to, right? The second thing that it tells us that this particular debtor, John Kelly, was included in the schedule given above. और ये जो है लास्ट कैटेगरी से बिलोंग करता है, जो एज ऑफ डेट में लास्ट कैटेगरी है ना, ओवर 100 डेज वाली, ये वहाँ ये इसका डेट वहाँ पे इंक्लूडेड था. So that means not just that we are going to treat it as a bad debt, but we will also adjust the value of the last group in the trade receivables. So the last group trade receivables जहाँ पे 1320 लिखा हुआ है, you should write negative 320 next to it, because that 1320 included John Kelly. Now that person is no longer your debtor. So we agree with this treatment. John Kelly's bad debt is going to be on the debit side of bad debts account 320, and we will also amend our existing schedule of the trade receivables. The last group of the trade receivables is not 1320 now, but $1,000 only, because 320 will be subtracted from there. Give me a green check, everyone. All right. Very good. अच्छा, फजर को नहीं समझ आया? Fajr, this part, do you agree with this entry here? John Kelly debit side 320.
Yes, sir.
दूसरी बात जो उसने की हुई है ना, बाकी के जो पैराग्राफ में लिखा है, उसने कहा है कि आपकी बुक में जहाँ पे ट्रेड रिसीवेबल्स का स्केड्यूल दिया हुआ है, वहाँ पर आपके पास ओवर 100 डेज वाला ग्रुप जो है ना, वहाँ पे 1320 लिखा हुआ है. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So now this 1320 is going to be decreased, because इसमें 320 वाला J Kelly का figure included था. So now you have to subtract it from there, because J Kelly is no more your trade receivable, because you've just written it off as bad debt. Understood? Understand that? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good. And then moving on the next page, there is one more bad debt information. It says other bad debts written off during the year totaled $460. So the rest of the bad debts that you wrote off, $460. So we will come to bad debts account, we will choose the debit side, and we will write off the remaining debtors. And since there is no name mentioned here, so just like 8.1 and 2, we are just going to give a general reference of sundry debtors. So sundry debtors or miscellaneous debtors, आप कुछ भी लिख सकते हैं. And there is no date given either, so you can leave the date columns blank, or you can just put 31st of December 20x2. जब आपके पास date of events ना दी हो, तो it's an optional thing. You can either leave it blank, or you can put the last date of the financial year. So the information has been placed in the accounts. The only thing left now is the provision for doubtful debts here, right? These two, bad debts account is done, bad debts recovered account is done, there's nothing more to it. So let's close these accounts first, and then we will come to, बल्कि चलो पहले provision for doubtful debts कर लें. A provision for doubtful debts हमारे पास, we are given a provision for doubtful debts calculation in stages. Iman brother?
I didn't understand how did 460 come.
It's given on page 93 on the top of the page. some part of the information was mentioned on the next page. Do you find it?
Oh, yes.
Right? Got it?
I do.
Okay, good, good. All right. Now, so provision for doubtful debts is the last thing left now, and we come to the aging schedule of the debtor, and we are going to calculate the provision for doubtful debts in stages. So here goes the workings. We are going to show some workings over here, workings for provision for doubtful debts. So we have different groups of trade receivables. If I ask you what is the amount of trade receivables at the end of the year on 31st December 20x2, what should your answer be? What's the amount of trade receivables existing at 31st December 20x2? Answer in the chat box. What is the total amount of trade receivables at 31st December 20x2? Yes, Selena, 32,650 is the total amount of trade receivables at the end of the year. Remember 1320 जो आखिरी वाला group है वो 1320 नहीं है बल्कि वो 1000 consider किया जाएगा because out of that 320 was J. Kelly's debt which we wrote off as bad debt, right? So the end of the year we had $32,650 of trade receivables, and these have been grouped now based on the age of the debt. So now we are going to analyze the provision for doubtful debts in stages. So we'll take one group at a time. So we have $19,600 worth of trade receivables group, which is subject to 1% provision for doubtful debt. So that comes out 196, right? Then there's the second group consisting of $8,400 of trade receivables, which is subject to 2% depreciation provision for doubtful debts. So that comes out to be how much? 8,400 times 2%.
168.
168, thank you, 168. And then we have the third group consisting of $3,650 of trade receivables subject to a provision for doubtful debts of 4%. That comes out to be 146, thank you, Asma, 146. And then we have the last group, and the last group we have to be careful because it is given as 1320, but we know that out of that 320 is no more our debtor. वो हमने write off कर दिया तो J. Kelly का debt, and now it will be subject to 10% provision for doubtful debts, which comes out to be, thank you, Asma, $100, right? Thank you, Alina. And now we have our provision for doubtful debts, right? So what is the provision for doubtful debts for the current year? 609, Asma? 609 नहीं होगा क्योंकि round value आ रही 610. Yes, Nadia. Thank you, Asma. 610. $610 is the provision for doubtful debts for the current year. Now we come to the provision for doubtful debts, our account, and we find $500 as the balance brought down in the provision for doubtful debts. That begs the next question, that should we increase our existing provision or should we decrease it? And based on the fact, we are going to choose the side. So what do you say? Increase or decrease, and by what value? We should increase it by 110, Marine. Very good. Increase it by 110. So you will agree if I put 110 over here, and that will be done on 31st of December 20x2. And if this change is going to be transferred to the income statement, right? And since this is representing an increase in the provision for doubtful debts, so we can always add an added notation over here that it will be treated in your income statement as an expense. Do you agree with this entry? Give me a green check here quickly. Iman? Iman nahi samajh aaya. Okay, Iman, do you understand this working here? The working for provision for doubtful debts?
Yes.
Okay, so do you agree that the current year's provision for doubtful debts that we want is $610, and we already have $610 and we already have $500. So that means we will just need to increase it by $110 in order to make it 610.
Okay.
Got it?
Yes.
Excellent. So now we will close the accounts. So we have $610 as balance carried down. This is exactly what we wanted. That our balance carried down should reflect current year's provision, which is $610 here, right? This $610 here, right? So we will title this as 31st December 20x2, and that is it. Then we are going to bring down the balance carried down to the next year as 1st of January 20x3. We will bring it down as balance brought down $610, and that wraps up the provision for doubtful debts account. However, we have two other accounts still open. So the expense account and the income account. And every expense and every income is going to go to the income statement. So these are not going to have a balance carried down. Instead, the total, whatever the total comes out to be, which is how much bad debts account, the total? How much is this? 200 plus 320 plus 460, 980.
980.
Thank you, Madhiha. Thank you. 980. And that 980 is not going to be carried forward to the next year, but it will be transferred to income statement as an expense on 31st of December 20x2, right? And same goes for the bad debts recovered account. That bad debts recovery is going to be treated as an income in the income statement. So we are going to transfer this amount to the income statement as an income on 31st of December 20x2. So this is the end of this question. So if we understand everything on your screen, then please give me a green check. Very well done. Very well. Very good, Imam. Very good. All right. So this question usually have one further requirement जो कि यहाँ पे तो नहीं है और अगले question में भी नहीं है और वो होता है कि sometimes the examiner asks you what is the total amount for what's the total amount for bad and doubtful debts to be charged to income statement. ये पार्ट मैं इसलिए इस वक्त यहाँ पे डिस्कस कर रहा हूँ because you see this requirement very consistently on your in the multiple choice question जो आपके मैंने assignment पोस्ट की थी वहाँ पे you will see that अक्सर MCQs will ask you what is the total amount of bad and doubtful debts to be charged to income statement. So when we say, so remember this is not something very rigid a requirement, but generally when bad and doubtful debts are to be taken to the income statement, that means that you are going to take bad debts, okay, and you are going to take plus or minus the provision for doubtful debts charge, जो भी है, like in this case, provision for doubtful debts is an expense in this question, so that will be added to the expenses, and you subtract the bad debts recovered from it to calculate one value that you will take to the income statement. So in this case, bad debts were $980. Provision for doubtful debts was an expense, so वो add हो जाएगी $110, and bad debts recovery $600 will be subtracted, and that is going to be the net charge in the income statement for bad and doubtful debts. So although this requirement is not mentioned in this question, but I thought I would solve it right now, because that is going to save you a lot of trouble in the MCQ sheets over there. So 980 plus 110 minus 600, that is one value that you will show, that you have the option to show in the sorry, in the income statement as one value, or alternatively you can show them separately. Bad debts 980 as expense separately show करें, provision for doubtful debts का 110 separately as expense show कर दें, and bad debts recovered as a separate income show कर दें. So you have both the options. You can merge them into one value in the income statement, or you can take them as three separate values and show them individually in the income statement. Do we understand? Yes or no? Iman Badr, Marine Pervez, you get it? I think. All right. Okay, so let's take 2 minutes, let's take 5 minutes and 7 minutes. Do 8.4 right now. 8.4 is exactly the same as 8.3, and that should cover every possibility. So let's start this 8.4. You will do it, and I will show you the answer once you're done. So इसके बाद फिर हम MCQ sheets पे आते हैं और फिर हम उसकी problems discuss करते हैं. Okay, let's get started. And once you're done with 8.4, then you will leave a green check so that I know कि मुझे अब answers show करने हैं आपको. Let's get on. Marine, we're doing 8.4. 8.4 will be done exactly the same way as 8.3. And once you have completed your work, then you will leave a green check. Then I will show you the answer. If you find any statement confusing, or if there is anything you need explanation for, then let me know. Very well done, Maheen. Let's wait for your friends to finish. Excellent, Alina. Let's wait. Very good. Nadiha. Amal is done. Very well done, Amal. Let's wait now. Okay, Amna Kashif is done. Excellent. Mary Pervez is done. Excellent. Let's wait. Iman Farouk is finished too. Hadia is finished. Very well. Asma is done. Excellent, Asma. Fajr, Iman, Minal. Minal is done. Very well. Minal. Okay, let me just bring the answer. Then we can there you go. You see the answer on screen. If your answer matches with what you see on screen, then give me a fresh green check. If it doesn't match, then see where the problem is and we can discuss it. If your answers are correct, then give me a green check. Very well done, Nadiha. Very good, Nahreen. Amal got it too. Very good. Asma's got it. Excellent, Asma. Very well done, Iman Farouk. If you have anything wrong here and you don't understand it, then I can explain. Then unmute your mic and ask me to describe blah blah value. I'll do that. Adia is also finished. Very well done, Adia. Amna Kashif is done. Excellent, Amna. Maheen and Alina Sayyed and Alina Waqas, Fajr Babar, Alina sale is finished. Very well. Maheen is done. Very done. Okay, so we're waiting for Alina Wakas and Fajr and Iman Badr to give a green check. Then we'll move on to the MCQ sheets. Fajr is finished. Alina Wakas is finished. Iman Badr. You understand it? Okay, Iman Badr is done too. So we have very little time left, but I can spare a couple of minutes afterwards too, so we can just quickly jump over to the MCQs sheet. Yeah, the MCQs provision for doubtful debts, and I will share it. That is all right. Okay, so let's start with the problems first. Do you think I should provide you with the answers first and then we should discuss the problems, or you have any specific problem in mind to start with? Acha, there were some questions yesterday. Let's discuss those. Alina, I think आपने कहा था trade discount or cash discount, if I remember correctly. Don't worry, trade discount and cash discount वाला part you can skip for now. We will discuss it in the next class जब इसमें हम सारा problems देख लेंगे. Does anyone have a problem in the first MCQ? Because that is a little strange. Do you want me to explain the first MCQ? We can go in order, right? Okay, Maureen's got ठीक है. Okay, let's start with the first MCQ. ठीक. So what you are given here is on 1st of July, you had 3 different individuals जिनकी total amount 1750 or 3500 था. This is the opening date and this is the closing date, right? And then these are specific provisions, and then there is a general provision. So you have the option to treat specific provision as an irrecoverable debt, or you can treat it as a provision for doubtful debts ka part. So in this question, the examiner has shown specific provision as a part of the general provision. So this is your overall provision on 1st of July. So you can say, if we make a small account here, so you can say this is the provision for doubtful debts. The opening balance is 5,900. The closing balance is 10,700, right? This is the 5,900 here, and this is the 10,700 here. And you were also told that there was some bad debt happened during the period. A final payment of $50 was received from X. So X 750 आपको owe करता था, इसमें से $50 आपको receive होगी. So that leads you to a conclusion that bad debt was $700, right? Bad debt was $700, right? And now you are to show the amount for bad and doubtful debts. So bad debt is an expense. This is an expense, and the provision for doubtful debts में जो increase आ रहा होता है, that is your expense. So your provision for doubtful debts is increasing from 5,900 to 10,700. So that means there is how much increase there is in the provision for doubtful debts? 4,800. Thank you, Isma. So 4,800 is your expense to the income statement, just like what we did now. So your total expense is 4,800 from the provision for doubtful debts and 700 from the bad debt you wrote off. So that means the two will add up to answer as D here, 5,500. Again, since the question demands the bad and doubtful debts together as one value, so you can have 700 as expense, for bad debt and 4,800 as an increase in the provision for doubtful debts, the total bad and doubtful debts charged to the income statement would be 5,500. So answer is D. Agreed? Yes or no? Very well. Very well done. Good, 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 good. आदिया नहीं समझ आया बेटा ईमान बदर बदीहा Okay, Iman brother. So this is, you need to pay attention to the dates. 1st July 1997 पे आपके पास provision for doubtful debts का total 5,900 and this is simply the breakdown of how the firm calculated 5,900. This is the balance brought down here. Right? Iman, you understand?
Yes, sir.
And then 30th of June 1998 is the end of the year, and at the end of the year you had the provision for doubtful debts calculated as 10,700. So we treat it as the balance carried down here, just like provision for doubtful debts में balance brought down credit side पर होता है और carried down debit side पर होता है. Okay?
Yes.
And then you see that your provision is increasing from 5,900 to 10,700, and we know that increase in the provision for doubtful debts is an expense. So we come to this $4,800 as an expense, and along with that, there was a bad debt of 700. वो ये bad debt हमने कैसे calculate किया? You were told that during the period X was made bankrupt and a final payment of 50 was received. So this 50 is basically related to this 750. So if 50 was received out of this 750, that means the remaining 700 must have been bad debt. So your total expenses, the increase in the provision for doubtful debts, 4,800, and the bad debt that you wrote off as 700. So the total is 5,500, and that's the option. Got it?
Okay, sir. Yes, understood.
Very well done. Very, very, very well. Okay, do we have problems with the second question? अच्छा इस तरह हमें बड़ी देर लग जाएगी अगर हम एक क्वेश्चन पे चलते हैं लेकिन चलो कोई बात नहीं ठीक है it's all right. So second question. Any problems with the second question? Anyone? If you don't have any issues with the second question, let me show you the answers alongside. That's the answer. So I'll give you 2 minutes. But before that, how many of us have already attempted the questions? How many of us have already attempted this MCQ set? Okay. Alina has done. Very good, Alina. Naheen has done. अच्छा जिसने नहीं किया वो रेड क्रॉस मुझे दे दे because it's we will okay Alina Sayyed कोई बात नहीं Asma very good कोई बात नहीं you have time. I think I posted it from Monday night, so I understand that you have not attempted it yet. Amal, Hadia, have you attempted this?
Sir, I have done almost half.
Almost half of it. Okay, ठीक है. And Amal, not all of them, but अच्छा ठीक है मैं चलो ठीक है अगर आपने नहीं भी किया तो मैं आपको आंसर्स शो कर देता हूँ ठीक है इन एनी केस असाइनमेंट के अंदर आपके आंसर्स ठीक हैं या गलत हैं मैंने आपके क्रेडिट तो डिडक्ट नहीं करना इन एनी केस सो यू माइट एज वेल हैव अ लुक एट द आंसर्स हम ये कहते हैं कि आज का लेसन थोड़ा एक्सटेंड हो जाएगा तो हमें इनको आज करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है आप इन आंसर्स का स्क्रीनशॉट ले लें और जब हम मंडे को दोबारा क्लास शुरू करेंगे देन यू विल हैव अ क्लियर पिक्चर दैट विच आंसर्स यू गॉट रॉन्ग ठीक है डोंट लुक एट द आंसर्स व्हेन यू अटेम्प्टेड द एमसीक्यू व्हेन यू आर अटेम्प्टिंग एमसीक्यूज कीप द आंसर्स अवे once you have attempted the entire set then bring on the answers and see which one of them you got wrong and then on Monday when we meet again we will discuss the wrong answers because that will save us some time इस तरह तो शायद हम इस शीट के ऊपर 3 lessons लगा देंगे. So I think that is a better way of going about it. Asma, yes, Wednesday night. Sorry, thank you for correcting. Yeah, it's due Wednesday night, but we want to finish it by Monday lesson. ताकि Monday को हमने अगर एक lesson इसमें invest करना है, तो we have to go through the entire thing on Monday. So how are you going to go about it? You will first attempt all the MCQs without looking at the answer key. And once you have attempted these MCQs with your own honest attempt, then you will see the answer and identify the answers you got wrong, because that is the most important part of this practice. On Monday, when we meet, then you will bring the list of the answers you got wrong and you want to clarify everything that you got wrong. इसके अंदर कोई गलत बात नहीं है अगर आपके पास ये 21 MCQs है and you got all 21 MCQs wrong, that is perfectly fine with me, right? I am not going to deduct any credit from your assignment work. Your hard work needs to be paid off, so you spent enough time there. You will get your full marks there. But you need to know कि कहाँ आपके answers गलत हुए. Because अगर उन गलत answers को आपने छुपा लिया मुझसे तो फिर I won't be able to help you there. Understood? So attempt them honestly, and I will welcome the wrong answers on Monday class. Because अगर आप सब ने अपने answers गलत answers मेरे साथ discuss नहीं किए तो फिर आप ये सारी गलतियाँ term exam में करेंगे, and I don't want that. I want you to make all your mistakes right now, not in the term exams. Got it? Just please give me a green check if you understand the instruction that while we attempt the MCQs, we are not going to look at the answers. We will complete our attempt first. All the 21 MCQs we are going to attempt first, and then we are going to look at the answer, and then we will be able to identify which went wrong. And if by looking at the answers you can understand your mistake, fine. If you can't understand your mistake, highlight that, mark it, and then ask me on Monday. Understood? Fajr? Fajr, we get it? Achha, Alina has asked, do we edit the assignment you have uploaded to write the answers on a sheet? And you just have to write your answers only. जैसे अभी आप answer की देख रहे हैं ना सामने आप. So you just have to write your answer 1D, 2B, 3C, and so on. ठीक है? Just the answers. You don't have to send me the actual worksheet. Just this, जैसे आपके सामने इस वक्त answer की देखी हुई. This is how I expect your answer to be. Just a half page. Got it? Okay. Okay, people, then I will see you on Monday with your problems on the MCQ sheets. Do not hide your problems with me. Don't be ashamed of if you got all the answers wrong. That is perfectly fine, okay? I'll see you on Monday then. If you need to discuss anything further, then you stay back. Otherwise, you go. Thank you, Asma. You.